Bricks and Minifigs is your one-stop shop for all things LEGO. Hit the link below to find a store near you.
Good afternoon. This is Jim Hodgson with Griff's Bricks. This is Raid on Site 17. Built this off an Avatar build. Kind of got the idea when they released the Avatar sets last year for right before The Way of Water came out, and thought, hey, I've seen a lot of Star Wars builds, I've seen a lot of other sci-fi landscapes, but I've never seen any large Avatar landscapes. And so kind of started with about 4 gray base plates to start and realized it couldn't really convey the story, and so I expanded it to fill 8 gray or 16 gray base plates actually, and kind of take through and try to really show off the flora and the fauna from Pandora itself. Managed to pull some of the elements from the sets themselves, incorporate them, a few modifications to some of them to make them more compatible, and then trying to design the actual flora from the planet itself was entertaining. So you'd go through and you'd work the off a photo or off a screen cap from the film and try to get those details from the actual film itself to grab the concept and the actual recognizable flora and then incorporate it throughout. So started with those, worked my way into the shacks that were used at Site 26 in the movie. From a story standpoint, this is Raid on Site 17. Since we know there's 26 sites, we assume there's another 25. We know that when they kicked the humans off the planet, at least some of the non-science humans off the planet, they actually would have had to gone through and taken all those outside outposts and gotten rid of the people from them as well. So this is right between the big battle in the Hallelujah Mountains in the film before they actually kick everybody off planet. So it was an entertaining build working through. I've never done landscape. I've never done trees. I've never done a large-scale build, so this was all an adventure. Learned a lot from other builders and from YouTube, from Beyond the Brick itself and other sites, and found a lot of inspiration. Designed the whole thing to be modular from the get-go. It's 8 modules underneath that can fit into large boxes for transport. The trees themselves are freestanding. They're actually used the same basic internal structure as the treehouse set, just reclad different branches. I actually used a redwood tree as a inspiration for them. And then from there worked outward and started doing placement, composition of the overall piece, building the scene. The river proved entertaining because I've never done water either. So trying to get a 4-layer gradient on the river so that it actually would show off that depth and the change in depth over the area was quite entertaining. In fact, it was so intimidating I actually procrastinated for 2 weeks before I began work on it. From there, after laying everything out, it was starting to fill in the foliage, and that I knew from the get-go I needed detail. I hate seeing a base plate that's kind of scantily clad with foliage. So I figured this is a forest. Plants are going to grow everywhere that they can fit. And so we worked the Pandoran foliage in initially, and then I started filling the gaps. And LEGO did me a huge favor by releasing these new fern pieces this year. No, I did not buy 50 of the Rivendell sets. I actually managed to source all these off BrickLink, but there's about 2,200 of these new fern pieces in this build alone. It was kind of fun because I was able to hide some Easter eggs for the film as well. In the middle, we've got James Cameron up in the tree there, actually the producer of the Avatar films, and kind of played off that and added in one of his earlier films, the Terminator films, to allow kind of a nod to some of his other works. Eventually, there's a few other additions that'll be made to this. I'll probably add in, a nod to Aliens, a nod to maybe Titanic, some of his other big budget hits, and then I would love to get one of the. So in the movie, they're called hammerhead titanotheres. They're a big rhinoceros-like animal from the movie. I'd love to have it bursting through the fence. I'd love to add lighting and some other elements. Finish out the interiors of the shacks. Only one is done at this point. But this interior here has been basically finished out as a bunkhouse with a couple of details missing. And then additionally, A lot of the stuff in here are from actual sets, so I'd love to modify those. The Samson build I did was too big, too heavy. The model from the set is actually half the size of what it should be to scale, to minifigure scale. And so it was too heavy. The tree couldn't handle the weight. The fishing line surprisingly actually managed just fine, and that's what's holding it up now, as well as all the other flying creatures are actually held in place by that fishing line. But I'd love to be able to expand that, make it a little more accurate. I mean, this is a version from Rebrickable that's been modified even further. I'm blanking on the build at the moment, so I apologize to whoever it was. But it's been really entertaining. And then the willows, for example, in the back, Lego had one Lord of the Rings set where they used medium weight thread. And that's the only time I've ever seen white thread used. It's like, that would be perfect for this. And so I had to source a bunch of white thread, the same composition and type as the Lego thread, and basically tie them all off piece by piece. There's 12 per leaf piece, and then however many leaf pieces that is at this point. So a lot of thread, a lot of tying, a lot of time in front of the TV with sore fingers.
This is an incredible accomplishment here, and I love how much you pushed yourself in all these areas that you said you hadn't built in before. And I think you really achieved a really good look from the trees to the water and the landscaping. I know you mentioned like just a crazy number of the ferns. Talk about some of the other kind of brick-built plant life and how that came together for you. What were some of the elements and techniques you used there?
Well, so most of the Pandoran plant life I worked off of, these are actually from the set itself. I think they're called rooster heads, if I remember right. But the helicorydians, I think this is the third or fourth iteration of those that I built. Coming up with them in an actual colors that Lego had released was interesting, coming up with the actual design. The Delta trees were another perfect example where there really wasn't a good piece that worked for directly from Lego for essentially a manta ray style leaf. And so I took photos and concept art of those to try to bring in the details necessary to actually make that work. But
does that use the ice skate element on top there?
That's the ice skate element, and underneath is just a one of the curved 3x3 plates to give that color and texture to it. But yeah, the ice skate actually worked out perfectly because it's got kind of a slight sheen to that top ridge. And in the daytime, they're normally blue and green, I believe. But the color scheme didn't work, so I actually went with the nighttime, took a little artistic license to make the night version of this. But eventually, since this will all be lit anyway, it'll probably be closer to like a twilight theme to it, and use lighting elements to highlight the different foliage specifically. But it's been entertaining. I mean, the vein pods that they had in the Lego sets I didn't really care for. I mean, the design is great, but I think they were too large, so I used slightly smaller ones. And I apologize, I'm blanking on a lot of the names, but using the little whip pieces and the candlesticks to make the actual, some of the spiral foliage, I am blanking on the name, but it's been entertaining. The Spartan plants that we saw at the Avatar compound in the original movie, the little puffers in the white, all of these were elements I found in like some of the books with the art and the actual concept art that came from that. And then we had to include a few little fun elements as well. I mean, like the monkeys here stealing the mech, stealing the amp suit, making a pro lemur out of Lego was quite entertaining. It turns out Lego has nothing comparable, so at least that I could find. But one of the concept arts for these actually had them in silver, and so I stole the monkey body from some of the older sets and used the, I think it's Rio Durant's arms from one of the solo sets, I believe, back in 2018, to actually give them the 6 limbs that they're supposed to have. And just because, monkeys are usually cheeky or at least obnoxious, so I had them throwing the bananas at the driver and he's trying to chase him down. It's, have to have a little bit of fun with these things to make the whole thing work. And then, but other elements are a little more serious. You've got on the Samson, you've actually got the crew, falling out because it's rotating from after taking a few hits. In the back towards the fence, we've got the downed amp suit where he's been hit a few times, the leg's immobile, and he's actually being attacked from above by, Rambo Navi here, who's just jumping straight off the back. I was trying to figure out how to make it realistic in an actual assault, so I actually made the the Acrons, the riders on the Acrons, riding in tandem. So I've slightly modified the set to allow that to incorporate that element. Because how do you get over an electric fence when you're, I mean, even if you're 9 feet tall, you're still not going to touch that. So it's been fun trying to incorporate those elements and make things a little more interesting, and include the details necessary to actually tell the story fully.
Well, excellent work here. Thank you so much for all the effort you put into building this and bringing it out to the show. It's great to see something like Avatar represented, which, like you said at the beginning, you know, kind of more underrepresented theme, and it's been really neat to see this, you know, all on display here. So where do you plan to have this on display as you grow and expand on the idea?
Well, this was my first convention, first time displaying this model as well, so it's going to definitely be at a few additional conventions I'd like to display over the next year, probably Brick Cascade in Portland, hopefully BrickCon in Vancouver, if I can make it down Bricks on the Bay, and maybe even make it to Brickworld Chicago if I'm feeling adventurous with the road trip. And then, you know, probably Brick Slopes in Utah as well next August, and that'll probably be the final show for this particular model.
We'll look forward to that. Thank you so much for taking us through the build here. Keep up the great work.
Appreciate it. Thanks you.